And could you please state your full name for the record and spell your last name?
Elizabeth Ann Broderick. Broderick.
Maybe pull that microphone down a little towards you there. Okay.
Miss Broderick, when were you born?
November 7th, 1947,
Okay. And where were you born?
in New York City.
And
In November 1989, a quiet neighborhood in California became the scene of a shocking crime. 2 lives ended in the dead of night, and the person responsible wasn't a stranger. It was a woman once known as a devoted wife and mother. Her name was Betty Broderick. This is a story of love, ambition, betrayal, and a marriage that ended in tragedy. Before the headlines, before the courtroom drama, there was a young couple full of dreams. Betty met Dan Broderick in college. He was ambitious, driven, and determined to succeed. She was supportive, loyal, and willing to sacrifice for their future. Betty put her own goals aside to help Dan build his career, first in medical school, then in law school. She managed the household, raised their children, and stood by him through years of financial struggle. Together, they built what seemed like the perfect life. By the late 1970s, everything had changed. Dan became a successful lawyer. The family moved into an upscale home. They had status, wealth, and recognition. But success came with a cost. Their relationship began to crack. Arguments became frequent. Tension filled the home. And then, another woman entered the picture. Her name was Linda Colkina Broderick. She started as Dan's assistant, young, confident, and close to him. Too close. Betty suspected something was wrong. Soon those suspicions turned into a painful reality. Dan was having an affair. This wasn't just betrayal, it was the beginning of a bitter and destructive war. The divorce between Betty and Dan was anything but peaceful. It became a long, exhausting legal battle. Betty lost financial stability, she lost access to her home, and worst of all, she felt she was losing her children. Phone calls filled with anger, court hearings filled with accusations. The conflict spiraled out of control. To some, Betty appeared unstable. To others, she was a woman pushed to her limits. As time went on, Betty's behavior became more intense. She left angry messages. She showed up unannounced. She refused to let go of the past. Her pain turned into obsession. Friends and family grew concerned, but no one could fully stop what was coming. On a quiet night in November 1989, everything changed. Betty drove to Dan's home. Inside were Dan Broderick and Linda Colkina Broderick, asleep. Moments later, gunshots shattered the silence. Both were killed. The story that had been building for years reached its tragic end in minutes. The trial of Betty Broderick captured national attention. The courtroom became a battleground of perspectives. Was Betty a victim of emotional turmoil, or was this a calculated act of revenge? The first trial ended without a verdict, but the second trial delivered a decision. Betty was found guilty of second-degree murder. Decades later, the case still sparks debate. Some believe Betty was pushed beyond her limits. Others believe no situation justifies taking a life. Her story has been retold in books, interviews, and series like Dirty John. In the end, the Broderick case is more than a crime story. It's a reminder of how relationships can unravel, how anger can grow, and how choices, once made, can never be undone. What do you think? Was this tragedy inevitable, or could it have been prevented? Number 2. Stacey Castor, the Black Widow Killer. Some stories begin with love. Others end in betrayal. But this one? This one hides something far more disturbing beneath the surface. In a quiet town in New York, a woman would earn a chilling nickname, the Black Widow. Her name was Stacey Castor, and the truth behind her story shocked everyone. At first glance, Stacey Castor lived an ordinary life. She was a wife, a mother, and a member of her community. Nothing about her seemed unusual. But behind closed doors, things were not what they appeared. Her first husband, Michael Wallace, died suddenly in 2000. The cause? Initially believed to be natural. But that wouldn't be the end of the story. Years later, Stacey remarried. Her new husband, David Castor, brought a fresh start, or so it seemed. But in 2005, tragedy struck again. David Castor was found dead in their home. This time, the cause wasn't so easily explained. Authorities discovered he had been poisoned. 2 husbands, 2 deaths, and 1 woman at the center of it all. Investigators began to look closer at Stacey. As they dug deeper, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Michael Wallace's death, once thought to be natural, was now being questioned. Could both deaths be connected? Then came a twist no one expected. A suicide note appeared. But it wasn't written by Stacey. It was supposedly written by her daughter. The note claimed responsibility for the crimes, but something didn't add up. Investigators quickly realized the truth. The note had been staged. Evidence pointed in one direction. Stacey Castor had poisoned her husband and then tried to frame her own daughter. The plan was cold, calculated, and deeply disturbing. But it didn't work. The trial of Stacey Castor gripped the nation. Prosecutors laid out the evidence: a pattern of deception, a trail of poison, a mother willing to sacrifice her own child to escape justice. The defense tried to cast doubt, but the jury wasn't convinced. In the end, the verdict was clear: guilty. Stacey Castor was convicted of murder and sentenced to prison. Her story remains one of the most chilling true crime cases, not just because of the crimes themselves, but because of the betrayal at its core. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones we trust the most. What do you think about this case? Was justice served? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories.